The small town of Beaumont sat quietly in the Belgian countryside. Green hills rolled in every direction. Old stone buildings lined the narrow streets. And at the edge of town, behind tall iron gates, it stood the convent of Sacred Heart. This was home to 23 nuns who had given their lives to God. Among them was Sister Mary Catherine, an 84-year-old woman with silver hair and kind eyes that still sparkled with life. Sister Mary Catherine had lived within these walls for 63 years. She had entered the convent as a young woman of 21, leaving behind everything she knew, her family, her friends, her dreams. She had chosen a life of prayer, silence, and service, and she had never once regretted her decision. At least, that is what she told herself. Every morning began the same way. The bell rang at 5 o'clock. Sister Mary Catherine would rise from her small bed in her simple room. She would wash her face with cold water from the basin. She would put on her black habit and white veil. Then she would walk slowly down the stone corridor to the chapel for morning prayers. Her knees ached with age. Her back was not as straight as it used to be, but she never complained. Pain was part of life. She had learned to accept it long ago. After prayers came breakfast. The nuns ate in silence in the large dining hall. Simple food, bread, cheese, sometimes fruit from the garden. Sister Mary Catherine sat at her usual place near the window. She liked to watch the birds outside while she ate. Sparrows mostly, sometimes a robin. They reminded her of freedom, though she pushed that thought away whenever it came. The days at the convent were filled with work. Sister Mary Catherine tended the vegetable garden behind the main building. She had done this for 40 years. Her hands knew the soil like old friends. She grew tomatoes, carrots, beans, and lettuce. She talked to the plants sometimes when no one was listening. She told them stories. She encouraged them to grow. The other nuns thought she had the best garden in the convent. They did not know her secret. In the afternoons, Sister Mary Catherine helped in the kitchen. She peeled potatoes. She washed dishes. She swept the floors. Simple tasks that kept her body moving and her mind quiet. The convent valued silence. Speaking was allowed only when necessary. This suited Sister Mary Catherine. She had never been one for many words. Her thoughts were her own, and she kept them locked inside her heart. But there was one thing about Sister Mary Catherine that no one knew. One secret she had carried for more than 6 decades, and that secret lived in the old chapel at the far end of the convent. The chapel was a beautiful place. Tall windows let in colored light from the stained glass. Wooden benches lined the center aisle. A golden cross hung above the altar, and in the corner, almost forgotten, stood an old upright piano. It was dusty and worn. Some of the keys were yellow with age. The convent had received it as a donation many years ago, but no one ever played it. No one except Sister Mary Catherine. Every night, after the other sisters had gone to bed, Sister Mary Catherine would slip out of her room. She moved quietly through the dark corridors, her soft shoes making no sound on the stone floors. She knew every step by heart. She had made this journey thousands of times. When she reached the chapel, she would light a single candle and sit down at the piano, and then she would play. Her fingers, though old and bent with arthritis, would come alive on the keys. She played Beethoven. She played Debussy and Mozart and Bach. The music flowed from her like water from a spring. It filled the empty chapel. It rose up to the ceiling. It wrapped around her like a warm blanket on a cold night. In those moments, Sister Mary Catherine was not an old nun in a forgotten convent. She was young again. She was free. Music had been her first love. Long before she took her vows, long before she gave her life to God, she had discovered it as a child in her parents' home in Brussels. Her father was a banker, and her mother was a They had bought a piano when Mary Catherine was 5 years old. It was meant for the whole family, but only she had shown interest in it. By the age of 7, she could play simple songs. By 10, she was performing at school concerts. By 15, her teachers said she had a gift. They said she could become a concert pianist one day. They said she could play in the great halls of Europe, Paris, Vienna, London. The world was waiting for her. Her parents were so proud. They hired the best teachers. They paid for private lessons. They dreamed of seeing their daughter on stage, wearing a beautiful gown, bowing before thousands of cheering people. Mary Catherine dreamed of it too. She practiced for hours every day. Her fingers flew across the keys. The piano was her voice. It spoke the words she could not say. But then everything changed. When Mary Catherine was 19, her mother became very sick. Cancer. The doctors could do nothing. For 2 years, Mary Catherine sat by her mother's bed. She held her hand. She read to her. She prayed. And when her mother finally passed away, something inside Mary Catherine broke. She stopped playing the piano. She could not look at it without crying. Every note reminded her of her mother's smile. Every melody brought back memories of happier times. The music that had once brought her joy now only brought her pain. Her father did not understand. He begged her to play again. He said her mother would have wanted it, but Mary Catherine could not. She felt lost, empty. She did not know who she was without her mother. She did not know what to do with her life. One day, seeking peace, she visited a small church near her home. She sat in the back pew and listened to the silence. A nun noticed her crying and came to sit beside her. They talked for hours. The nun was kind and gentle. She told Mary Catherine about life in the convent, about finding peace in God, about letting go of pain. 2 years later, Mary Catherine made her decision. She would become a nun. She would leave behind the world of concert halls and applause. She would give her life to something greater than herself. Her father was heartbroken, but he accepted her choice. On a rainy morning in September, Mary Catherine walked through the gates of the Convent of Sacred Heart. She never looked back. Or so she thought, because even after 63 years, the music had never left her. It lived in her bones. It flowed through her blood. And every night, in the darkness of the old chapel, it came alive again. Sister Mary Catherine played for an audience of one. She played for God. She played for her mother. She played for the young girl she had once been. And she played for herself, the woman who had never stopped dreaming of what might have been. The other nuns sometimes heard faint sounds coming from the chapel at night. They thought it was the wind, or perhaps the building settling. They never imagined it was their quiet, gentle sister, playing the piano like an angel in the dark. But secrets like music have a way of finding their way into the light. And Sister Mary Catherine's secret was about to change her life forever. Autumn had arrived in Beaumont. The leaves on the old oak trees turned golden and red. The air grew crisp and cool. Farmers brought their harvests to the weekly market. Children walked to school in warm coats and scarves. Life in the small Belgian town moved slowly, as it always had, at the Convent of Sacred Heart. Sister Mary Catherine continued her daily routine. She woke with the bell. She prayed in the chapel. She worked in the garden, pulling up the last vegetables before the frost came. She helped prepare meals in the kitchen. And at night, when everyone slept, she played her piano in the dark. Nothing ever changed in the convent. The days blended together like drops of water in a river. Sister Mary Catherine liked it this way. Change was for the young. She was old now. She wanted only peace. But on a cold Tuesday morning in October, something unexpected happened. The mail arrived at the convent every day at 10 o'clock. A young man from the post office would ride his bicycle up the long path to the gates. Sister Bernadette, who was in charge of correspondence, would meet him there. Usually, there were only a few letters, bills, notices from the church, sometimes a letter from a family member to one of the nuns. But this Tuesday was different. Sister Bernadette returned from the gate holding a large, cream-colored envelope. It was thick and heavy. Golden letters spelled out the name of the receiver, Sister Mary Catherine. Sister Bernadette had never seen anything like it. It looked important, official. She hurried inside to find her elderly sister. Sister Mary Catherine was in the garden, kneeling in the dirt, pulling weeds from between the cabbage plants. Her hands were covered in soil. Her knees were wet from the morning dew. She looked up when she heard footsteps approaching. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Bernadette called out, "You have a letter." Sister Mary Catherine stood slowly, brushing the dirt from her habit. "A letter for me." This was unusual. Sister Mary Catherine had no living family. Her father had passed away 30 years ago. She had no brothers or sisters. Who would write to her? She took the envelope from Sister Bernadette and examined it. The paper was smooth and expensive. Her name was written in elegant script. In the corner was a logo she did not recognize. It looked like a television screen with a star inside it. "Open it," Sister Bernadette said. Unable to hide her curiosity, Sister Mary Catherine carefully broke the seal and removed the letter inside. It was printed on beautiful stationery. She read the words slowly, her eyes growing wider with each sentence. The letter was from a television station in Brussels. They were organizing a special event called Hearts of Gold. It was a charity talent show to raise money for children's hospitals across Europe. The best performers from Belgium, France, Germany, and the Netherlands would compete. Millions of people would watch on television. Famous judges would decide the winners. The prize money would go to help sick children, but that was not all. The letter said that someone had nominated Sister Mary Catherine to participate. Someone who had heard her play the piano. Someone who believed she had extraordinary talent that the world needed to hear. Sister Mary Catherine's hands began to shake. The letter nearly fell from her fingers. "What does it say?" Sister Bernadette asked. "Sister, you look pale. Are you all right?" Sister Mary Catherine could not speak. She read the letter again and again. The words did not change. Someone wanted her to play the piano on television, in front of millions of people, in front of the whole world. But who had nominated her? How had they heard her play? She only played at night, alone in the chapel. No one knew about it. No one except she thought of the bakery in town. Sometimes, when she played late at night, she opened the chapel window to let in fresh air. The baker, Mr. Dupont, lived just beyond the convent walls. His house was close enough to hear sounds from the chapel. Could he have heard her playing? Could he have told someone? It seemed impossible, and yet here was the letter in her hands. Sister Bernadette was still waiting for an answer. Other nuns had noticed them talking in the garden. They gathered around, curious about the unusual envelope. "It is nothing," Sister Mary Catherine said quickly, folding the letter and putting it in her pocket. "Just a mistake. Someone has confused me with another person." But Sister Bernadette was not convinced. She had seen the look on Sister Mary Catherine's face. Something was happening, something big. That afternoon, Sister Mary Catherine could not concentrate on her work. She burned the soup. She dropped a plate in the kitchen. She forgot to water the tomato plants in the greenhouse. Her mind was spinning with thoughts she could not control. Why had she received this letter? Why now, after so many years? She was 84 years old. She had not performed for an audience since she was 20 years old. That was 64 years ago. Another lifetime, another world, and yet, a small voice inside her whispered something she did not want to hear. It whispered that this was her chance, her last chance, a chance to share her gift with the world before it was too late. She pushed the voice away. She was a nun. She had taken vows. She had promised to live a life of humility and service. Performing on television was the opposite of everything she believed in. It was vanity. It was pride. It was seeking attention when she should seek only God. But the voice would not go away. It followed her through the corridors. It sat beside her during evening prayers. It kept her awake long after the other sisters had gone to sleep that night. For the first time in many years, Sister Mary Catherine did not go to the chapel to play. She lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the letter. She pulled it from under her pillow and read it once more by the light of the moon. The deadline for responding was in 2 weeks. If she wanted to audition, she had to contact the producers by the end of the month. If she did not respond, they would assume she was not interested. The opportunity would pass. She would never hear from them again. Part of her wanted to tear the letter into pieces, to pretend it had never arrived, to go back to her quiet life and forget that any of this had happened. But another part of her, a part she had buried long ago, wanted something different. It wanted to feel the keys beneath her fingers one more time, to hear the music fill a great hall, to know that her gift, the gift her mother had loved so much, had not been wasted. She thought about her mother. What would she say if she could see this letter? Would she be proud? Would she be angry that Mary Catherine had hidden her talent for so long? Would she tell her to take this chance, to step into the light, to show the world what she could do? Tears rolled down Sister Mary Catherine's cheeks. She wiped them away with the corner of her blanket. She was too old for tears, too old for dreams, too old for chances, and yet the letter remained in her hands. A door had opened, a door she thought had been closed forever. The next morning, Sister Mary Catherine made a decision. She would not respond to the letter. Not yet. She would wait. She would pray. She would ask God for guidance. Perhaps the answer would come to her in time. But fate had other plans. News of the letter had spread through the convent like fire through dry grass. Sister Bernadette had told Sister Joan. Sister Joan had told Sister Therese. And Sister Therese had gone straight to the one person Sister Mary Catherine hoped would never find out. Mother Superior Sister Agnes had led the convent of Sacred Heart for 15 years. She was a tall woman with a sharp nose and even sharper eyes. Nothing happened in the convent without her knowledge, and she did not like surprises when she called Sister Mary Catherine to her office that afternoon. The elderly nun knew that her quiet life was about to change. She just did not know how much. The walk to Mother Superior's office felt like the longest journey of Sister Mary Catherine's life. Her feet moved slowly down the stone corridor. Each step echoed against the walls. Portraits of former Mother Superiors hung in wooden frames, their painted eyes seeming to follow her as she passed. Sister Agnes's office was at the end of the east wing. A heavy oak door guarded the entrance. Sister Mary Catherine had been inside this room only a handful of times in her 63 years at the convent. Once when she first arrived, once when she celebrated her 50th year of service, and now, she knocked gently on the door. "Enter," came the sharp voice from within. Sister Mary Catherine turned the brass handle and stepped inside. The office was neat and orderly. A large desk sat near the window. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with religious texts and records of the convent. A crucifix hung above Sister Agnes's chair. The room smelled of old paper and candle wax. Sister Agnes sat behind her desk, her hands folded in front of her. She wore the same black habit as all the nuns, but somehow it looked more imposing on her. Her face was serious. Her thin lips were pressed together in a straight line. "Close the door," she said, "and sit down." Sister Mary Catherine obeyed. She lowered herself into the wooden chair facing the desk. Her heart was beating fast. She felt like a child about to be scolded by a strict teacher. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Sister Agnes studied the old nun with her sharp eyes. Sister Mary Catherine kept her gaze on her lap, unable to meet her superior's stare. Finally, Sister Agnes broke the silence. "I have heard about the letter." Sister Mary Catherine nodded slowly. Of course she had heard. Nothing remained secret in the convent for long. "I have also heard," Sister Agnes continued, "that you have been playing the piano in the chapel, at night, alone, for many years." Sister Mary Catherine's hands began to tremble. So the secret was out. After all this time, someone had discovered the truth. She wanted to explain. She wanted to say that she meant no harm, that the music was like breathing to her, that without it she would have lost herself long ago. But before she could speak, Sister Agnes raised her hand. "I am not here to discuss your nighttime activities. What you do in your private time is between you and God. However, this letter is a different matter entirely." She picked up a piece of paper from her desk. It was a copy of the invitation from the television station. Sister Bernadette must have shared the contents with her. A talent show, Sister Agnes said, her voice dripping with disapproval. On television. For entertainment. It is for charity, Sister Mary Catherine said quietly. For sick children. Sister Agnes waved her hand dismissively. I understand the stated purpose, but the method is inappropriate. We are servants of God, Sister Mary Catherine. We are not performers. We do not seek attention. We do not stand on stages for applause. Sister Mary Catherine wanted to argue. She wanted to say that sharing her gift could bring comfort to people, that music had the power to heal, that perhaps God had given her this talent for a reason, and hiding it away was a waste of his blessing. But she knew Sister Agnes would not listen. The Mother Superior had strong beliefs about how nuns should behave. Humility was the greatest virtue, pride was the greatest sin, and performing on television, in front of millions of people, was the height of pride. I did not ask for this invitation, Sister Mary Catherine said softly. I do not know who nominated me. That does not matter, Sister Agnes replied. What matters is how you respond. And the answer is clear. You must decline. The words hit Sister Mary Catherine like a cold wind. She had expected this. She had told herself the same thing just last night. And yet, hearing it spoken aloud by her superior made it feel so final, so absolute. You will write to these television people today, Sister Agnes continued. You will thank them for their consideration, and you will politely inform them that you are unable to participate. Is that understood? Sister Mary Catherine looked up at the crucifix above Sister Agnes's chair. Jesus hung there, suffering. She thought about sacrifice, about giving up the things you love most, about following the path God had chosen, even when it led through darkness. Yes, Mother Superior, she heard herself say. I understand. Sister Agnes nodded, satisfied. Good, you may return to your duties. Sister Mary Catherine rose from her chair. Her legs felt weak. Her heart felt heavy. She walked to the door and placed her hand on the handle. Sister Mary Catherine, Sister Agnes called out. She turned back. I know this is difficult for you, the Mother Superior said. Her voice was slightly softer now, though still firm. But we must resist temptation. The world outside these walls is full of distractions, fame, glory, recognition. These things pull us away from what truly matters. You made a choice 63 years ago. You chose God over the world. Do not let one letter make you forget that choice. Sister Mary Catherine nodded and left the room. She walked through the corridors in a daze. The other nuns she passed smiled and greeted her, but she barely noticed. Her mind was far away, lost in memories and regrets. She found herself in the garden, standing among the empty vegetable beds. The last of the autumn leaves fell around her like brown snowflakes. The sky was gray and heavy with clouds. Winter was coming. She thought about her mother again, about the piano lessons in their warm living room in Brussels, about the concert she had given as a young girl, when the future seemed so bright and full of possibility, about the dreams she had buried when she entered the convent. Had she made the right choice? 63 years ago, she had been certain God was calling her. The convent was where she belonged. The music had to be left behind, but now, standing alone in the cold garden, she was not so sure. What if she had been running away? What if entering the convent had been about escaping her grief, not finding God? What if she had wasted her gift, the one precious thing her mother had given her? These were dangerous thoughts. She knew that. She tried to push them away, but they clung to her like wet clothes, refusing to let go. That evening, Sister Mary Catherine sat at the small desk in her room. A single candle provided light. A blank piece of paper lay before her. A pen rested in her hand that she needed to write the letter. The letter declining the invitation. The letter that would close the door forever. She stared at the blank page for a long time. An hour passed, then two. Finally, she picked up the pen and began to write, Dear Sir or Madam, thank you for your kind invitation to participate in the Hearts of Gold charity event. I am deeply honored that someone thought of me for this opportunity. However, after careful consideration and prayer, I must respectfully decline. My life is here at the convent, and my place is with my sisters in service to God. I am not suited for the world of television and performance. I wish you great success with the event. I will pray for the children who will benefit from your charity. With blessings. Sister Mary Catherine. She read the letter 3 times. Each time the words felt more wrong, more hollow, more like a betrayal of something deep inside her. But she had no choice. Mother Superior had given an order. She had taken a vow of obedience. She must follow the rules. She folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. She would give it to Sister Bernadette in the morning. It would be mailed to Brussels, and that would be the end of it. That night, Sister Mary Catherine did not go to the chapel. For the second night in a row, she stayed in her room. She did not play a single note. The silence pressed against her like a weight. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the darkness, wondering if she would ever feel the joy of music again. The piano sat waiting for her in the chapel, but she could not bring herself to touch it. It felt like saying goodbye to an old friend, and she was not ready for goodbye. Outside her window, the wind howled through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called into the night. Sister Mary Catherine closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but sleep would not come. Only memories. Only music. only the echo of dreams that refused to die, and in the rooms around her, other sisters were also awake. Sisters who had heard about the letter, sisters who loved Sister Mary Catherine, sisters who were already planning something that would change everything. Sister Bernadette could not sleep. She lay in her small bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Sister Mary Catherine. The image of the old nun's face when she received that letter kept playing in her mind. There had been something there, something beyond surprise. It was hope. And then, just as quickly, it had disappeared. Sister Bernadette was 52 years old. She had been at the convent for 28 years. In all that time, she had grown close to Sister Mary Catherine. They worked together in the garden. They sat near each other during meals. They shared the quiet moments that made up life at Sacred Heart. And Sister Bernadette knew a secret. She had heard the music. It started about 10 years ago. Sister Bernadette suffered from poor sleep. Some nights she would wake at 2 or 3 in the morning and lie awake for hours. On one such night, she had heard something strange, a faint sound, drifting through the stone walls. At first she thought she was dreaming, but the sound continued. Beautiful, haunting, impossible. She had followed the sound through the dark corridors. Her bare feet were cold on the stone floor. Her heart beat with curiosity and fear. What could be making such music in the middle of the night? The sound led her to the old chapel. Through the heavy wooden door, she could hear it clearly now. Piano music. Someone was playing the piano. Someone with incredible skill. Sister Bernadette had opened the door just a crack, just enough to see inside. And there, in the candlelight, sat Sister Mary Catherine. Her eyes were closed. Her fingers danced across the keys. The music that flowed from her was unlike anything Sister Bernadette had ever heard. It was sad and beautiful and full of longing. It was the sound of a soul speaking without words. Sister Bernadette had closed the door quietly and returned to her room. She never mentioned what she had seen. She understood that this was Sister Mary Catherine's private world, her secret garden, her hidden treasure. But she never forgot it. And now, all these years later, she knew that the world deserved to hear what she had heard that night. The next morning, Sister Bernadette made a decision. She would not let this opportunity pass. Sister Mary Catherine might be too humble to fight for herself, but she was not alone. At breakfast, Sister Bernadette sat next to Sister Joan. Sister Joan was a cheerful woman of 45 with round cheeks and a warm smile. She was known for her optimism and her willingness to bend the rules when the cause was just. "I need to talk to you," Sister Bernadette whispered between bites of bread. "Meet me in the garden after morning prayers." Sister Joan raised an eyebrow but nodded. After prayers, the two nuns met behind the greenhouse, where they could speak without being heard. The morning air was cold, and their breath made small clouds as they talked. "It is about Sister Mary Catherine," Sister Bernadette began, "and the letter." Sister Joan's eyes widened. "Everyone is talking about it. Mother Superior refused to let her go. She had to write a letter declining the invitation." "I know," Sister Bernadette said, "but I do not think that is right." She told Sister Joan about the night she had heard the music, about watching Sister Mary Catherine play in the candlelit chapel, about the incredible gift that had been hidden for decades. Sister Joan listened with her mouth open. "I had no idea. I knew she loved music, but I never imagined." "She is extraordinary," Sister Bernadette said, "and she is 84 years old. How many more chances will she have? This invitation is like a miracle, and we are just going to let it slip away." Sister Joan was quiet for a moment. She understood the risk of what Sister Bernadette was suggesting. Going against Mother Superior was serious. It could mean punishment. It could mean shame. It could mean being asked to leave the convent. But Sister Joan had never been one to follow rules blindly. She believed that God sometimes asked people to take risks, to step out of their comfort zone, to do what was right, even when it was difficult. "What do you have in mind?" she asked. Sister Bernadette smiled. "We need to talk to the television people ourselves. We need to explain the situation. Maybe there is a way for Sister Mary Catherine to participate without going against her vows. Maybe they can find a solution that Mother Superior would accept." "That is a big maybe," Sister Joan said. Mother Superior was very clear. She said no to a competition. Sister Bernadette replied. She said no to seeking glory and applause. But what if Sister Mary Catherine did not compete? What if she simply performed as a gift, for the charity, without any prizes or fame attached? Sister Joan thought about this. It was a clever idea. Mother Superior's objection was about vanity and pride. But if the performance was purely an act of service, purely for the children, purely to share God's gift without expecting anything in return, maybe that was different. "We need more help," Sister Joan said. "We cannot do this alone." "I know someone," Sister Bernadette replied. Sister Therese. Sister Therese was the youngest nun in the convent. At 31, she was still learning the ways of religious life, but she had something the older sisters did not have. She understood technology. She knew how to use computers and the internet. Before entering the convent, she had worked in an office in Antwerp. She still had contacts in the outside world. The three sisters met that evening in Sister Therese's room. It was a small space, barely large enough for a bed and a desk, but it was private, and privacy was what they needed. Sister Bernadette explained the plan. They would contact the television producers. They would explain that Sister Mary Catherine wanted to participate but that her Mother Superior had concerns about the nature of the event. They would ask if there was a way to make it work. Sister Therese nodded as she listened. I can find their contact information online. The television station has a website. There should be an email address for the show's producers. Can you send them a message without anyone knowing? Sister Joan asked. Sister Therese smiled. The convent has a computer in the office. Mother Superior rarely uses it. I can send the email late at night, when everyone is asleep. It felt strange, planning something in secret. These were women who had devoted their lives to honesty and transparency. Lying went against everything they believed in. But was it really lying? They were not trying to deceive anyone. They were trying to help a sister who was too humble to help herself. They were trying to share a gift that the world needed to hear. They were trying to bring joy to sick children. Was that not what God would want? They decided to act quickly. The deadline was approaching. Every day that passed was a day lost. That night, after the convent had fallen silent, Sister Therese crept to the office. The computer was old and slow, but it worked. She found the website for Hearts of Gold. She found the email address for the production team, and she began to type, "Dear Hearts of Gold team, I am writing on behalf of Sister Mary Catherine of the Convent of Sacred Heart in Beaumont, Belgium. You recently sent her an invitation to participate in your charity event. She was deeply moved by this invitation, but her Mother Superior has asked her to decline. We believe there may be a misunderstanding. Mother Superior's concern is that participating in a competition would go against our values of humility and service. We do not seek fame or recognition. We wish only to serve God and help others. However, we also believe that Sister Mary Catherine has an extraordinary gift. Her music has the power to touch hearts and bring comfort to those who hear it. We have heard her play, and we know that sharing this gift with the world would be an act of service, not vanity. We are writing to ask if there is any way Sister Mary Catherine could participate without competing. Perhaps as a special guest, perhaps as a gift to the audience, with all proceeds going directly to the children's charity. We believe that if the invitation were framed in this way, Mother Superior might reconsider. Sister Mary Catherine is 84 years old. This may be her only chance to share her music with the world. We humbly ask that you consider our request. With gratitude and blessings, friends of Sister Mary Catherine. Sister Therese read the message 3 times. It seemed honest. It seemed humble. It seemed like something God would approve of. She pressed send. The email disappeared into the internet, traveling across invisible wires to Brussels, where it would sit in someone's inbox until morning. Sister Therese closed the computer and returned to her room. She did not know if the plan would work. She did not know if the producers would even respond. But she had tried. They had all tried. The rest was in God's hands. The next few days passed slowly. The sisters went about their normal routines, trying not to look suspicious. Sister Mary Catherine seemed sadder than usual. She moved through her days like a ghost, barely speaking, barely eating. The light had gone out of her eyes. Then, exactly 1 week after the email was sent, Sister Therese received a response. She opened it with trembling fingers. The other 2 sisters gathered around her, holding their breath. The message was from the executive producer of Hearts of Gold. His name was Pierre Laurent, and what he had to say changed everything. He was moved by their letter. He understood their concerns, and he had a proposal that might satisfy everyone. Sister Mary Catherine would not compete. Instead, she would perform as a special guest during the finale of the show. Her performance would be dedicated entirely to the children's charity. No prizes, no competition, no glory. Just a nun sharing her gift with the world. The 3 sisters knew they could not approach Mother Superior directly. If Sister Agnes discovered that they had gone behind her back, sent emails without permission, and contacted the television producers in secret, there would be serious consequences. They needed a different approach. They needed someone whose word Mother Superior would trust. That someone was Father Thomas. Father Thomas was the priest who served the convent. He came every Sunday to lead Mass and hear confessions. He was a kind man in his 60s, with gray hair and gentle eyes. He had known the nuns of Sacred Heart for over 20 years. Mother Superior respected him deeply. If anyone could change her mind, it was him. Sister Bernadette asked for a private meeting with Father Thomas after Sunday Mass. She told him everything. About the letter. About Sister Mary Catherine's gift. About the secret emails. About the proposal from the television producers. Father Thomas listened without interruption. When Sister Bernadette finished, he sat in silence for a long moment, his fingers pressed together in thought. "You have taken quite a risk," he said finally. "Going against Mother Superior's wishes is not something to be done lightly." "We know," Sister Bernadette replied, "but we could not stand by and watch this opportunity disappear. Sister Mary Catherine has given her whole life to this convent. She has never asked for anything for herself. And now, at 84 years old, she has a chance to share her gift with the world. A chance to bring joy to millions of people. A chance to raise money for sick children. How could we let that slip away?" Father Thomas nodded slowly. "And you believe this performance would not be about pride or vanity? That it would truly be an act of service?" "I am certain of it," Sister Bernadette said. "You should hear her play, Father. It is like listening to an angel. Her music comes from a place of pure love. There is nothing selfish about it. Father Thomas thought for another long moment. Then he rose from his chair. I will speak with Mother Superior, he said. I cannot promise anything, but I will try. Sister Bernadette felt tears of gratitude fill her eyes. Thank you, Father. Thank you so much. The meeting between Father Thomas and Mother Superior took place the following afternoon. It lasted for nearly 2 hours. The other nuns went about their duties, but everyone was aware that something important was happening behind the closed door of Mother Superior's office. Sister Mary Catherine herself knew nothing of this. She was in the garden, as usual, pulling the last dead plants from the soil before winter set in. She had no idea that her fate was being decided just a few hundred meters away when the office door finally opened. Father Thomas emerged looking tired but peaceful. Mother Superior stood behind him, her face unreadable. Gather the sisters, she said to Sister Bernadette, who happened to be passing by. I have an announcement to make. Within minutes, all 23 nuns were assembled in the main hall. They sat on wooden benches, their hands folded in their laps, their eyes fixed on Mother Superior. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Mother Superior stood at the front of the hall, Father Thomas beside her. She surveyed the room slowly, her gaze passing over each nun in turn. It has come to my attention, she began, that some of you have been busy. A nervous energy rippled through the crowd. Sister Bernadette, Sister Therese kept their eyes down, afraid to look at their superior. Letters have been sent, emails have been exchanged, plans have been made without my knowledge or approval. Sister Mary Catherine sat near the back of the hall. She had no idea what Mother Superior was talking about. She looked around at the other sisters confused. Normally, Mother Superior continued, such behavior would be met with serious consequences. We are a community built on trust and obedience. When that trust is broken, the community suffers. The 3 conspirators held their breath. This was it. They were going to be punished, perhaps even sent away. But then something unexpected happened. Mother Superior's stern expression softened, just slightly, just enough to notice. However, she said, Father Thomas has helped me see things from a different perspective. She paused, letting the words sink in. The invitation from the television program was not what I initially believed. It was not an invitation to compete for glory. It was an invitation to serve, to share a gift with the world, to bring comfort to those in need, and to raise money for sick children. Sister Mary Catherine's heart began to beat faster. What was happening? What was Mother Superior saying? After much prayer and discussion, Mother Superior continued, I have decided to reconsider my original position. A murmur of surprise went through the room. The nuns looked at each other with wide eyes. Sister Mary Catherine, Mother Superior said, her gaze finding the elderly nun at the back of the hall. Please stand. Sister Mary Catherine rose slowly to her feet. Her legs trembled beneath her. She felt every eye in the room turn toward her. The television producers have offered a compromise. Mother Superior explained, you will not compete in their talent show. You will not seek prizes or recognition. Instead, you will perform as a special guest during the finale. Your performance will be dedicated entirely to the children's charity. All proceeds from that segment of the show will go directly to help sick children across Europe. Sister Mary Catherine could not believe what she was hearing. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. This is not about fame, Mother Superior continued. This is not about applause. This is about using the gift God has given you to help others. And that is something I cannot refuse. Tears began to stream down Sister Mary Catherine's cheeks. She did not try to stop them. She did not care who saw. You have my permission to participate, Mother Superior said. May God guide your fingers and bless your music. The room erupted in quiet joy. The nuns embraced each other. Sister Bernadette, Sister Joan, and Sister Therese hugged so tightly they could barely breathe. They had done it. Against all odds they had done it. Sister Mary Catherine stood frozen in place, unable to move. After a moment, Mother Superior walked toward her. The 2 women faced each other in silence. I was wrong to silence you, Mother Superior said softly, so only Sister Mary Catherine could hear. Your gift is not vanity, it is grace. Share it with the world. Sister Mary Catherine took Mother Superior's hands in her own. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The television producers sent a car to pick up Sister Mary Catherine from the convent. It was a long black vehicle, fancier than anything she had ever seen. She sat in the back seat, watching the countryside roll past the window, feeling like she was traveling to another planet. She had not been outside the convent in over 40 years. The world had changed so much that cars were different. The buildings were taller. People walked around with small glowing devices in their hands, staring at screens instead of looking at the sky. Sister Mary Catherine felt overwhelmed. She clutched her rosary beads, praying for strength. God had opened this door for her. She had to trust that He would guide her through it. The drive to Brussels took nearly 3 hours. When they arrived at the television studio, Sister Mary Catherine gasped. The building was enormous, made of glass and steel. Huge trucks sat outside, filled with cables and equipment. People rushed in every direction, carrying papers and speaking into headphones. A young woman met her at the entrance. Her name was Sophie, and she was assigned to help Sister Mary Catherine through the experience. Sophie had bright red hair and a kind smile. She led the old nun through the maze of corridors, explaining everything they passed. This is the green room, where performers wait before going on stage. This is the makeup room, but don't worry, we'll keep yours very natural. This is the stage entrance. And this, Sophie pushed open a heavy door, and Sister Mary Catherine found herself standing at the edge of the main studio. It was magnificent. Rows of seats rose up like a mountain, enough for thousands of people. Lights hung from the ceiling, so bright they made her squint. Cameras on tall poles pointed toward the stage from every angle, and in the center of it all, sitting under a spotlight, was the most beautiful piano she had ever seen. It was a grand piano, black and shining like a pool of still water under moonlight. Sister Mary Catherine walked toward it slowly, as if approaching something sacred. She had never played a grand piano before. The one in the chapel was an old upright, worn and out of tune. This instrument was perfection. She could tell just by looking at it. Sophie watched as the elderly nun reached out and touched the piano's smooth surface. There was something in Sister Mary Catherine's eyes, something Sophie could not name. Wonder, perhaps, or reverence, or the look of someone meeting a long-lost friend. "Would you like to try it?" Sophie asked gently. "The rehearsal is not for another hour. You can practice if you want." Sister Mary Catherine nodded. She sat down on the leather bench, adjusting her habit so it would not get in the way. She placed her hands on the keys. They were cool and smooth beneath her fingers. She closed her eyes. She thought of her mother. She thought of the young girl she had once been, full of dreams and hope. She thought of 60 years of silence, of playing alone in the dark, of hiding her gift from the world, and then she began to play. The day of the performance arrived with gray skies and a light rain falling over Brussels. Sister Mary Catherine woke early in her hotel room, a place so different from her simple cell at the convent that she almost forgot where she was. The bed was soft and wide. The curtains were thick and heavy. A television sat on the wall, though she did not know how to turn it on. She had not slept well. Her mind had been too full of thoughts, too crowded with memories and fears and hopes. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the grand piano waiting for her on that enormous stage. Every time she started to drift off, she heard the echo of music in her dreams. Now, sitting on the edge of the bed in the gray morning light, she prayed. She held her rosary beads and moved through each prayer slowly, deliberately. She asked God for strength. She asked for calm. She asked him to guide her fingers and fill her heart with peace. A knock came at the door. It was Sophie, the young assistant who had been assigned to help her. "Good morning, sister," Sophie said cheerfully. "Did you sleep well?" "As well as can be expected," Sister Mary Catherine replied with a gentle smile. "I am not used to such luxury." Sophie laughed. "Well, today is going to be a big day. We have a lot to do before the show tonight. Are you ready?" Sister Mary Catherine took a deep breath. "I believe I am." The morning was filled with activity that left the old nun dizzy. First came breakfast in a large dining room where other performers gathered. Sister Mary Catherine sat quietly at a corner table, watching the chaos around her. Young singers practiced their vocal exercises. Dancers stretched their legs. Magicians shuffled cards with lightning speed. Everyone seemed so confident, so comfortable in this strange world of lights and cameras. Sister Mary Catherine felt like a fish pulled from a quiet pond and dropped into a rushing river. Everything moved too fast. Everyone talked too loud. The coffee was too strong, and the pastries were too sweet. She nibbled on a piece of plain bread and sipped water, trying to steady her nerves. After breakfast, Sophie led her to the makeup room. A woman named Claire sat her down in a large chair facing a mirror surrounded by bright bulbs. Claire had purple hair and tattoos on her arms, which startled Sister Mary Catherine at first. But the woman's touch was gentle, and her voice was kind. "Don't worry," Claire said. "We're going to keep everything very natural. Just a little powder to reduce shine from the lights, and maybe some color on your lips, so you don't look washed out on camera. Nothing dramatic." Sister Mary Catherine nodded and closed her eyes while Claire worked. The brushes felt strange on her skin. She had not worn makeup since she was a young woman, before entering the convent. Back then, her mother would sometimes put rouge on her cheeks before piano recitals. The memory brought a small smile to her lips. When Claire finished, Sister Mary Catherine looked at herself in the mirror. She looked the same, perhaps a bit brighter, a bit more awake, but still herself. Still the old nun from Beaumont. She was relieved. Next came the rehearsal. Sophie led her through the winding corridors of the studio, past rooms full of costumes and equipment, past groups of people speaking into headphones and staring at computer screens. The noise was constant, a hum of activity that never stopped. Finally, they reached the backstage area. Through a gap in the curtains, Sister Mary Catherine could see the stage. Workers were adjusting lights and testing microphones. The grand piano sat in the center, gleaming under the spotlights like a black jewel. "The show starts at 8 o'clock, Sophie explained. "The finale, where you'll perform, is scheduled for around 10:30. You'll wait in the green room until then. I'll come get you when it's time." Sister Mary Catherine nodded, but her attention was elsewhere. She was staring at the piano, feeling its pull like gravity. Her fingers tingled with the desire to touch those keys again. "Can I practice?" she asked. Sophie smiled. "Of course, the stage is yours for the next 30 minutes. Sister Mary Catherine walked onto the stage alone. Her footsteps echoed in the vast empty space. The seats stretched up and away, thousands of them, waiting to be filled with people. In just a few hours, all those seats would be occupied. All those eyes would be watching her. She sat down at the piano and placed her hands on the keys. They were cool beneath her fingers, smooth and waiting. She closed her eyes and began to play. This time, she chose a different piece. Not Chopin, but Debussy, Clair de Lune. Moonlight. It was one of her mother's favorites, a piece so tender and delicate that it always made her think of quiet nights and gentle dreams. The music filled the empty studio. It rose up to the ceiling and floated down again like falling leaves. It wrapped around the chairs and caressed the walls. It was beautiful. It was perfect. When the piece ended, Sister Mary Catherine opened her eyes. She was not alone anymore. A small group had gathered at the edge of the stage. Technicians, assistants, even a few of the other performers. They stood in silence, watching her with expressions she could not quite read. Then, slowly, they began to applaud. Sister Mary Catherine felt her cheeks grow warm. She was not used to applause. She was not used to being seen. For 60 years, she had played in darkness, alone with her music and her God. This attention felt strange, almost uncomfortable. But there was something else too, something she had almost forgotten. Joy, the pure, simple joy of sharing music with others, of touching hearts with sound, of being heard. She bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement and rose from the bench. Sophie was waiting for her with a big smile. "That was amazing," the young woman said. "Everyone is talking about you." Sister Mary Catherine did not know what to say. She simply nodded and followed Sophie back to the green room. The green room was a large space with comfortable sofas and tables covered with food and drinks. Other performers came and went, some nervous, some excited, some lost in their own worlds. A television in the corner showed a live feed of the stage, where a young man was currently singing a pop song with great energy. Sister Mary Catherine sat in a quiet corner, away from the noise and bustle. She held her rosary beads and prayed, trying to calm the butterflies in her stomach. Hours passed. The show began. She watched on the television as performer after performer took the stage. Singers, dancers, acrobats, comedians, each one talented, each one hungry for success. She felt so out of place among them. What was she doing here? An 84-year-old nun in a room full of young dreamers. She should be back at the convent, tending her garden, praying in the chapel. She should be anywhere but here. Doubt crept into her heart like cold water seeping through a crack. What if she failed? What if her fingers froze on the keys? What if she forgot the music? What if millions of people watched her make a fool of herself on live television? She closed her eyes and gripped her rosary tighter. "Help me, Lord," she whispered. "I am afraid." In the silence of her prayer, she heard her mother's voice. Not really, of course. Her mother had been gone for 65 years, but in her memory, the voice was clear and warm. "You have a gift, Mary. A gift from God. Do not hide it under a basket. Let it shine." Sister Mary Catherine opened her eyes. The fear was still there, but something else had joined it. Determination. She had come too far to turn back now. She had been given this chance for a reason. She would not waste it. At 10:15, Sophie appeared at her side. "It's almost time, sister. Are you ready?" Sister Mary Catherine stood slowly. Her old bones creaked. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Yes, child. I am ready." Sophie led her through the backstage corridors to the wings of the stage. The noise from the audience was like a living thing, a roar of excitement and anticipation. Through the curtain, Sister Mary Catherine could see the lights blazing, the cameras pointing, the host standing at the center of it all. And now, the host was saying, "We have a very special guest for our finale tonight. She is not a competitor. She is not here for prizes or fame. She is here to share a gift with all of you, a gift she has kept hidden for over 60 years. Sister Mary Catherine felt Sophie squeeze her hand. "You've got this," the young woman whispered. "Please welcome, from the Convent of Sacred Heart in Belgium, Sister Mary Catherine." The curtain parted. The light hit her face, and Sister Mary Catherine stepped onto the stage, walking toward the piano that had been waiting for her all her life. The applause that greeted Sister Mary Catherine was polite but confused. The audience had been expecting something spectacular for the finale, a famous singer perhaps, a dazzling dance troupe, a world-renowned orchestra. Instead they saw a tiny old woman in a simple black habit, walking slowly across the stage with careful steps. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People leaned toward each other, whispering questions. Who was this? Why was a nun performing at a talent show? Was this some kind of joke? Sister Mary Catherine heard none of it. The lights were so bright that she could barely see the audience. They were just shadows beyond the glare, a sea of darkness dotted with the red eyes of cameras. She focused on the only thing that mattered. The piano dotted stood in the center of the stage, magnificent and waiting. She walked toward it, as if walking toward an old friend. Each step brought her closer to the moment she had dreamed of for 60 years. Each breath carried her further from fear and closer to faith. The host, a handsome man in a shiny suit, met her halfway across the stage. He held a microphone and smiled with perfect white teeth. "His sister Mary Catherine," he said, his voice warm and welcoming. "Thank you for joining us tonight. Can you tell us a little about yourself?" She paused and looked at him. The question seemed so simple, yet the answer was so complicated. How could she explain 84 years of life in a few sentences? How could she describe the journey that had brought her here? "I am just an old woman who loves music," she said softly. Her voice was thin but clear, carrying through the microphone to every corner of the studio. "I have not played for an audience since I was very young. But tonight, I play for the children, for the sick little ones who need our help." The audience shifted. Something in her voice touched them. The whispers stopped. The confusion faded. People began to pay attention. The host nodded respectfully. "We are honored to have you. Please, take your time." He stepped back, leaving her alone on the stage. Sister Mary Catherine continued her walk to the piano. It seemed to take forever. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart beat so loud she was sure the microphones could hear it. Finally, she reached the bench. She sat down carefully, adjusting her habit so it would not catch on anything. She looked at the keys, so familiar and yet so strange in this setting. She placed her hands on them, feeling their coolness, their smoothness, their promise. The studio fell completely silent. Not a cough, not a whisper, not even the rustle of clothing. Thousands of people held their breath, waiting. Sister Mary Catherine closed her eyes. She thought of her mother. She thought of the little apartment in Brussels where she had first learned to play. She thought of summer afternoons filled with music and laughter. She thought of her mother's smile when Mary Catherine played something beautiful. "This is for you, Mama," she whispered, so quietly that only she could hear. And then she began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor floated into the air like the first drops of rain before a storm. They were gentle, tentative, almost questioning. The melody introduced itself shyly, as if unsure of its welcome. But then it grew. It deepened. It expanded. The music began to pour from Sister Mary Catherine's fingers like water from a broken dam. Years of silence, years of playing alone in the dark, years of holding back her gift from the world. All of it came, flowing out in a torrent of sound. Her fingers danced across the keys with a grace that defied her age. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, no fear. The music had taken over. She was no longer an old woman in a foreign place. She was the music itself. She was every note, every phrase, every moment of beauty. The audience sat frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The music wrapped around them like arms, holding them close, speaking to something deep inside their hearts that they had forgotten was there. A woman in the front row began to cry. She did not know why. The tears simply came, rolling down her cheeks as the music touched a wound she had carried for years. Beside her, her husband reached for her hand and held it tightly. In the middle section, the ballade grew passionate and stormy. The notes came faster, more urgent, more demanding. Sister Mary Catherine's body swayed with the emotion. Her eyes remained closed, but her face showed everything: pain, joy, loss, hope, the entire span of human feeling, expressed through sound. The cameramen forgot their instructions. They were supposed to cut between different angles every few seconds, keeping the broadcast dynamic and engaging. Instead, they held their cameras steady, unable to look away from the old nun at the piano. The director in the control room stopped giving orders. He just watched, his mouth open, tears forming in his eyes. In living rooms across Europe, people stopped what they were doing. Families gathered around their television sets. Children who had been playing with toys went quiet. Teenagers put down their phones. Elderly couples held hands. Something was happening. Something extraordinary. Something that demanded attention. The ballade moved into its final section. The music became tender again, a return to the gentle questioning of the opening. But now there was wisdom in the notes. Experience. Acceptance. It was the sound of a long journey reaching its destination. The sound of peace after struggle. The sound of coming home. Sister Mary Catherine played the final phrases with exquisite care. Each note was precious, placed exactly where it needed to be. The melody faded, softer and softer, until the last note hung in the air like a single star in a vast dark sky. And then there was silence, complete, absolute silence. Sister Mary Catherine sat still at the piano, her hands resting on the keys, her eyes still closed. She was not sure it was over. She was not sure where she was. The music had carried her away to another place, and she was still finding her way back. The silence lasted for 3 seconds, 4, 5, and the audience exploded. The applause was like thunder. It rolled through the studio in waves, growing louder and louder until the walls themselves seemed to shake. People rose to their feet, not in ones and twos, but all at once. 1,000 bodies standing together in tribute. Shouts of bravo echoed from every corner. Hands clapped until they stung. Tears flowed freely down faces young and old. The host stood at the side of the stage, his professional composure completely shattered, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Sister Mary Catherine opened her eyes. She looked out at the standing crowd, at the sea of faces shining with emotion, at the cameras blinking their red lights, recording everything for the world to see. She did not understand what was happening. She had simply played a piece of music, the same piece she had played hundreds of times alone in the chapel. Why were all these people crying? Why were they standing? Why were they looking at her as if she had performed a miracle? Slowly, carefully, she rose from the piano bench. Her legs trembled. She held onto the piano for support. The applause did not stop. If anything, it grew louder. She took a small step forward and bowed her head, the way she had been taught as a young girl, so many years ago. The simple gesture of humility made the audience cheer even more. The host walked to her side, his microphone forgotten. He did not try to speak. There was nothing to say. Words would have been inadequate. Instead, he simply stood beside her, sharing the moment. Sister Mary Catherine looked up at the lights, then out at the audience, then up toward the ceiling, as if looking beyond it to somewhere far away. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. "Thank you, God." The applause continued for 7 minutes. It was the longest standing ovation in the history of the program. Later, people would say it was the longest 7 minutes of their lives, but also the shortest. Time seemed to stop and stretch and compress all at once, the way it does in moments of true magic. When the applause finally faded and the audience reluctantly took their seats, the host managed to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sister Mary Catherine." The applause began again, and this time, nobody tried to stop it. The old nun from Beaumont stood in the spotlight, surrounded by love and gratitude, having given the world a gift it would never forget. Backstage, Sophie watched on a monitor, tears streaming down her face. In the green room, the other performers sat in stunned silence, knowing they had witnessed something that transcended competition, that transcended television, that transcended anything they had ever seen. And in heaven, if such things are possible, a mother smiled down at her daughter with infinite pride. Sister Mary Catherine returned to her hotel room that night feeling strangely empty. The excitement, the applause, the tears and smiles, all of it had drained away, leaving her tired and quiet. She sat on the edge of the soft bed and looked at her hands, the same hands that had just played for millions of people. They did not look any different, still old, still wrinkled, still spotted with age. She prayed before sleep as she always did. She thanked God for the strength to perform. She thanked Him for the chance to share her gift. She asked Him to bless the sick children who would benefit from the charity, and then she slept, deeply and peacefully. For the first time in weeks, she did not know what was happening in the outside world. The video of her performance was uploaded to the internet within minutes of the broadcast ending. A technician at the television station, still moved by what he had witnessed, posted it to YouTube with a simple title: 84-year-old nun plays Chopin within an hour. It had 10,000 views. By midnight, it had reached 100,000. By morning, it had crossed 1 million. The video spread like fire across dry grass. People shared it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and platforms that Sister Mary Catherine had never heard of and could not have imagined. They sent it to their friends, their families, their co-workers. They posted comments in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing: "This is beautiful. This is special. This made me cry." News outlets picked up the story. First the local Belgian stations, then the national networks, then the international media. By noon the next day, Sister Mary Catherine's face was on screens around the world. CNN and BBC, Al Jazeera, NK in Japan, ABC in Australia. Newspapers printed her picture on their front pages. Radio stations played clips of her performance. Podcasters discussed her story with voices full of wonder. The headlines wrote themselves: "Hidden talent, elderly nun stuns world with piano performance. Nun's secret gift brings millions to tears. 84-year-old Sister Mary Catherine becomes overnight sensation. The nun who made the world stop and listen." Sister Mary Catherine knew none of this when she woke up. She ate a simple breakfast in her room, dressed in her habit, and prepared to return to the convent. Sophie arrived at 9 o'clock, looking both excited and exhausted. "Sister," she said, her eyes wide, "have you seen the news?" "I do not watch television, child," Sister Mary Catherine replied calmly. "What news?" Sophie pulled out her phone and showed her the screen. Numbers scrolled past, bigger than anything Sister Mary Catherine could comprehend. Views, shares, comments, millions of them. "You're famous," Sophie said. "The whole world is talking about you." Sister Mary Catherine stared at the small glowing screen. She did not understand most of what she saw, but she understood enough. Her performance had touched people, many people. "Is this good?" she asked uncertainly. Sophie laughed. "It's incredible. The charity has received more donations in the past 12 hours than in the entire previous year. Children's hospitals across Europe are calling, thanking the television station. Your performance has raised over 2 million euros already, and the number keeps climbing." Sister Mary Catherine sat down slowly. 2 million euros. She could not picture such a sum. It was more money than she had seen in her entire life, and it would go to help sick children. Children she had never met and would never know. Children whose lives might be saved because an old nun had played the piano on television. "Thanks be to God," she whispered. The journey back to the convent took longer than expected. Word had spread that Sister Mary Catherine was traveling through Belgium, and people gathered along the route hoping to catch a glimpse of her. At one point, the car had to stop at a traffic light, and a small crowd pressed against the windows, waving and smiling and holding up signs. Sister Mary Catherine waved back shyly, not sure what else to do. These people did not know her. They had only seen a few minutes of her life, and yet they treated her like a hero. When the car finally passed through the gates of the Convent of Sacred Heart, Sister Mary Catherine felt relief wash over her. She was home. The familiar stone buildings, the garden she had tended for decades, the quiet rhythm of religious life, all of it welcomed her back like an embrace. But the convent was not as quiet as usual. A crowd had gathered outside the gates, reporters with cameras, photographers with long lenses, journalists with microphones. They shouted questions as the car passed, but Sister Mary Catherine did not respond. Sophie had warned her not to speak to the press, and she was happy to follow that advice. Inside the convent walls, the other sisters were waiting. They stood in the courtyard, all 22 of them, arranged in a semicircle like a welcoming committee. When Sister Mary Catherine stepped out of the car, they began to applaud. She felt her cheeks grow warm. "Please," she said, holding up her hands. "I have done nothing special. I only played the piano." Sister Bernadette stepped forward and took her hands. "You have done something very special," she said firmly. "You have shown the world that talent does not fade with age, that beauty can be found in the most unexpected places, that a simple life can produce extraordinary gifts." The other sisters murmured in agreement. Even Mother Superior, standing at the back of the group, nodded her head. The days that followed were strange and overwhelming. Letters began arriving at the convent by the hundreds, then by the thousands. They came from every corner of the world, from Japan and Brazil, from Canada and South Africa, from tiny villages and massive cities. People wrote to thank Sister Mary Catherine for her music. They said it had helped them through difficult times. They said it had reminded them of loved ones they had lost. They said it had given them hope when they thought there was none left. A woman in Australia wrote that she had been planning to end her own life, but after watching Sister Mary Catherine's performance, she had changed her mind. "If an 84-year-old nun can find the courage to share her gift with the world," she wrote, "then maybe I can find the courage to keep living." A man in America wrote that he had not spoken to his father in 10 years. After watching the video together, they had reconciled. "Your music opened our hearts," he wrote. "Thank you for giving me back my family." A child in a hospital in Germany wrote that she listened to the performance every night before falling asleep. "Your music makes me feel less scared," she wrote in shaky handwriting. "Please play more." Sister Mary Catherine read every letter. It took her hours each day, but she did not skip a single one. Each story touched her deeply. Each word of gratitude humbled her. She had never imagined that her music could have such power, could reach so far, could change so many lives. The charity continued to grow. Final tallies showed that the Hearts of Gold event, fueled largely by Sister Mary Catherine's viral performance, raised over €15 million for children's hospitals. It was the most successful charity campaign in European history. Hospitals purchased new equipment, hired more doctors, and treated children who otherwise would not have received care. Invitations poured in from around the world. Concert halls wanted her to perform. Television shows wanted to interview her. Recording companies wanted to produce an album. Filmmakers wanted to make a documentary about her life. Sister Mary Catherine declined them all. "I am not a performer," she told Sophie during one of their phone conversations. "I am not a celebrity. I am just a woman who plays piano, a woman who got lucky enough to share her gift one time. That is all." Sophie did not try to change her mind. She understood that fame meant nothing to Sister Mary Catherine. The old nun had what she wanted, a quiet life, a loving community, and the knowledge that her music had helped others, but the world did not forget her. Years later, people would still talk about the night an elderly nun in a simple black habit sat down at a grand piano and made millions of people cry. They would share the video with their children and grandchildren. They would point to it as proof that beauty could appear in the most unexpected forms, and that it was never too late to share your gifts with the world. Sister Mary Catherine had become, without wanting or seeking it, a symbol of hope, a reminder that age is just a number, a testament to the power of music, a light in a world that often felt too dark. And at the center of it all was a humble old woman who still tended her garden, still ate simple meals in silence, and still played the piano alone in the chapel every night, now with the window open, so anyone who wished to hear could listen. 3 months had passed since the performance. The world had moved on to new stories, new sensations, new things to discuss and share. But at the Convent of Sacred Heart, life had settled back into its familiar patterns: morning prayers, simple meals, work in the garden, evening reflection, the rhythm of days that had continued unchanged for over a century. Sister Mary Catherine was grateful for this return to normal. The attention had been overwhelming. The letters, though touching, had taken hours from her daily routines. The requests for interviews and appearances had been constant and exhausting, even though she declined them all. Now, finally, the flood had slowed to a trickle. She could be just another nun again, invisible and content, but something had changed. Something subtle, something she felt more than she could explain. The other sisters looked at her differently now. Not with jealousy or resentment, nothing so petty. It was more like wonder, like she carried a secret magic that they could sense but not quite see. And Mother Superior. That was the biggest change of all. Sister Agnes had always been a stern woman, strict about rules, firm about discipline, quick to correct and slow to praise. Sister Mary Catherine had respected her but had never felt close to her. The barrier between them had seemed permanent, built of years of formality and hierarchy, but now that barrier was crumbling. It started with small things, a nod of acknowledgement in the corridor, a softer tone during morning announcements, a moment of eye contact during prayers that felt almost like understanding. Then, one evening in early spring, Mother Superior did something unexpected. Sister Mary Catherine was in the garden planting seeds for the summer vegetables. The soil was dark and rich, cool beneath her fingers. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. She worked slowly, enjoying the peace, thinking of nothing in particular. She heard footsteps approaching but did not look up. Probably Sister Bernadette's coming to help with the planting. "May I join you?" The voice made Sister Mary Catherine freeze. She looked up to see Mother Superior standing at the edge of the garden. The tall woman looked almost uncertain, her hands clasped in front of her, her sharp eyes softer than usual. "Of course, Mother Superior," Sister Mary Catherine said, trying to hide her surprise. Sister Agnes lowered herself to the ground, kneeling in the dirt beside the older nun. Her habit would get stained. The soil would be hard to brush off, but she did not seem to care. For a few moments neither woman spoke. They worked side by side, placing seeds in the ground, covering them with earth, patting the surface smooth. The silence was not uncomfortable, but it was full of things waiting to be said. Finally, Mother Superior spoke. "I was wrong." The words hung in the evening air. Sister Mary Catherine stopped her planting and looked at her superior. Sister Agnes was staring at the ground, her jaw tight, her eyes glistening. "I was wrong about you," she continued, "about your music, about what it meant, about what it could do." Sister Mary Catherine did not know what to say. In 63 years at the convent, she had never heard Mother Superior admit a mistake. Not once, not ever. "When you first received that letter," Sister Agnes said, "I saw only pride, only vanity, only a temptation to be avoided. I thought I was protecting you, protecting the convent, protecting our way of life." She paused, her voice catching slightly. "But I was not protecting anyone. I was afraid of change, afraid of what might happen if one of my sisters stepped beyond these walls, afraid of losing control." Sister Mary Catherine reached out and placed her hand gently on Sister Agnes's arm. The gesture surprised them both. "You were doing what you thought was right," she said softly. "That is all any of us can do." Sister Agnes shook her head. "No, I was doing what was comfortable, what was safe, and I almost stopped something beautiful from happening." She finally looked up, meeting Sister Mary Catherine's eyes. "I watched the recording of your performance," she said. "I watched it many times, and each time, I wept. Not just because of the music though, the music was beyond anything I had ever heard. I wept because I realized what I had almost done. I had almost kept that music from the world. I had almost denied those sick children the help they received. I had almost silenced a voice that needed to be heard." Tears were flowing freely down her cheeks now. Sister Agnes, the stern Mother Superior who never showed emotion, was crying in the vegetable garden at sunset. "Can you forgive me?" she asked. Sister Mary Catherine felt her own eyes fill with tears. She moved closer and wrapped her arms around her superior. They held each other in the fading light. Two old women who had spent decades in the same building but had never truly known each other. "There is nothing to forgive," Sister Mary Catherine whispered. "You gave me permission in the end. You let me go. That is what matters." They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other, letting the years of distance dissolve between them. When they finally separated, both women were smiling through their tears. "Your music is a gift from God," Sister Agnes said firmly, "and I will never again try to hide a gift from God." That night, something new happened at the Convent of Sacred Heart. After evening prayers, as the sisters prepared to retire to their rooms, Mother Superior made an announcement. "Tonight," she said, "we will have a concert in the chapel. Sister Mary Catherine has agreed to play for us." A ripple of excitement passed through the group. The sisters looked at each other with bright eyes. They had heard the music through walls, through windows, in fragments and echoes. Now they would hear it clearly, openly. Together they gathered in the old chapel, sitting in the wooden pews that had held generations of praying nuns. Candles flickered in the corners, casting warm light on the stone walls. The stained glass windows were dark, the colors invisible in the night, but the beauty of the space was still evident. Sister Mary Catherine sat at the old upright piano, the same piano she had played alone for 60 years, the same keys, worn and yellowed, that knew her fingers as well as her own skin. But this time, she was not alone. 22 pairs of eyes watched her with love and anticipation. 22 hearts waited for the music to begin. She looked at her sisters, at Sister Bernadette, who had believed in her, at Sister Joan and Sister Therese, who had risked so much, at Mother Superior, sitting in the front row, her stern face finally at peace. "This is for all of you," Sister Mary Catherine said, "for taking care of me all these years, for letting me be myself, even when I hid parts of who I was, for being my family." And then she began to play. She played Chopin and Beethoven. She played Debussy and Mozart. She played hymns they all knew and pieces they had never heard. The music filled the chapel, rising up to the ceiling, wrapping around everyone like a warm blanket on a cold night. The sisters listened with open hearts. Some closed their eyes. Some let tears fall. Some smiled with pure joy. They understood now what they had been hearing all those years through the walls. They understood the depth of the gift that had been living among them. When the last note faded away, no one moved. The silence was sacred, holy, complete. Then Mother Superior rose to her feet. One by one, the other sisters followed. They stood together in the candlelit chapel, applauding their sister, their friend, their family. Sister Mary Catherine looked at them all with tears of gratitude. For 60 years, she had played in darkness, alone with her music and her God. Now, at last, she played in the light, surrounded by love, understood and accepted. This was where she belonged, not on a grand stage in Brussels, not in front of cameras and crowds, but here, in this simple chapel, with these women who had shared her life. The world might forget her name. The fame might fade like morning mist. But this moment, this pure, perfect moment of connection would last forever. Sister Mary Catherine bowed her head in thanks. Thanks to God, thanks to music, thanks to the sisters who had become her true family. And in her heart, she heard her mother's voice one more time, soft and full of love. "Well done, my darling, well done." 5 years passed after the famous performance. 5 years of quiet days and peaceful nights at the Convent of Sacred Heart. 5 years of seasons changing, of gardens growing, of prayers rising like incense to heaven. Sister Mary Catherine celebrated her 89th birthday with a small cake and the singing of her sisters. She blew out the candles with surprisingly strong breath and made a wish that she kept to herself. The world had not forgotten her, though the frenzy had long since calmed. Every few months a journalist would request an interview, a television producer would offer another appearance, a music company would propose a recording deal. Sister Mary Catherine declined them all with the same gentle response she had given from the beginning. "I am not a performer, I am just a woman who plays piano." But she continued to play. Every night, after the convent had settled into sleep, she would slip into the chapel and sit at the old upright. The window was always open now, by order of Mother Superior herself. The music floated out into the night air, drifting over the garden, past the walls, into the town beyond. People in Beaumont grew to love those late-night concerts. They would open their own windows to listen. Parents told their children about the nun in the convent who played like an angel. Couples walking home would stop and stand still until the last note faded. The baker, Mr. Dupont, the one who had first heard the music and nominated her for the show, would sit on his porch with a cup of tea and smile. The money raised by that single performance continued to do good in the world. New wings were added to children's hospitals. Equipment was purchased. Research was funded. Thousands of children received treatment they otherwise could not have afforded. The organizers of the charity estimated that over the years, the ripple effects of that night had helped more than 50,000 sick children across Europe. Sister Mary Catherine read these reports with quiet satisfaction. She had never cared about fame. She had never wanted applause. But knowing that her music had helped children, that was something worth living for. As the years passed, her body grew weaker. Her steps became slower. Her hands, once so nimble on the keys, began to shake with age. The arthritis that had always plagued her worsened, making some movements painful. But still she played every night, without fail. The other sisters noticed the change. They saw her struggle to rise from her chair. They heard her gasp with pain when she bent to work in the garden. They watched her grow thinner, frailer, more delicate with each passing month. Sister Bernadette, now in her late 50s, appointed herself as unofficial guardian. She walked beside Sister Mary Catherine during the day. She helped her 2 meals. She sat with her in the evenings, reading aloud from books or simply sharing comfortable silence. One night, about 6 months after her 89th birthday, Sister Mary Catherine did not go to the chapel. Sister Bernadette found her still in her room, sitting on the edge of her bed, her hands folded in her lap. "Are you unwell?" Sister Bernadette asked with concern. Sister Mary Catherine smiled softly. "My hands hurt tonight," she said. "I do not think they want to play." Sister Bernadette sat beside her on the narrow bed. She took one of the old hands in her own and held it gently. The skin was paper-thin, the bones visible beneath. These hands had created so much beauty, had touched so many hearts, that had carried music like water carries life. "Perhaps they have earned a rest," Sister Bernadette said. Sister Mary Catherine nodded. "Perhaps they have." From that night on, she played less frequently. Some nights her hands cooperated, and the music flowed as beautifully as ever. Other nights the pain was too great, and she sat in her room instead, listening to the silence. The sisters took turns visiting her during those quiet evenings. They brought her tea and conversation. They shared memories and laughter. They prayed together and sat in peaceful companionship. Sister Mary Catherine cherished these moments. They reminded her that she was not alone, that she had never been alone. On a cool October evening, Sister Mary Catherine asked to be taken to the chapel one last time. She had not played in nearly 2 weeks. Her strength was fading. Everyone could see it. Sister Bernadette and Sister Joan helped her down the corridor. Her feet barely touched the ground. She weighed almost nothing, but her eyes were bright and her spirit was determined. They settled her on the piano bench. The other sisters gathered in the pews, sensing that something important was happening. Mother Superior sat in the front row, her weathered face calm but alert. Sister Mary Catherine looked at the keys. Her old friends, her companions through decades of joy and sorrow. She placed her hands on them one final time. The music that came was unlike anything she had ever played. It was not Chopin or Beethoven or Debussy. It was something new, something that came from deep within her soul. A melody that seemed to contain her entire life, her childhood in Brussels, her mother's love, her years of silence, her moment of glory, her peaceful final days. The sisters listened with tears streaming down their faces. They understood. This was goodbye. When the music ended, Sister Mary Catherine sat still for a long moment. Then she lifted her hands from the keys and folded them in her lap. "Thank you," she whispered. To the piano, to the music, to God, to everyone and everything that had brought her to this moment. She passed away 3 weeks later, peacefully in her sleep, on a quiet Tuesday morning in November. She was 89 years and 7 months old. She had spent 68 years at the Convent of Sacred Heart. She had touched millions of lives with a single performance, and she had died as she had lived with grace, humility, and faith. The funeral was held in the chapel where she had played so many nights. The pews were full to overflowing. Sisters from other convents came to pay their respects. People from the town of Beaumont filled the back rows. Even some journalists stood quietly at the door, their cameras and notebooks respectfully put away. Mother Superior spoke the eulogy. Her voice was strong, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Sister Mary Catherine was not famous, she said. She did not seek fame, and she would not want us to remember her for it. She was a servant of God, a tender of gardens, a keeper of silence, and yes, a player of piano. She paused, looking at the old upright in the corner. It seemed lonely now, waiting for fingers that would never touch its keys again. But most of all, Mother Superior continued, she was proof of something important. Proof that it is never too late to share the gifts God has given us. Proof that beauty can bloom in the most hidden places. Proof that a quiet life, lived with faith and love, can change the world. The service ended with a recording of Sister Mary Catherine's performance from that famous night. The music filled the chapel, just as it had filled studios and living rooms and hearts around the globe. People closed their eyes and listened. They remembered. They gave thanks. After the funeral, the sisters buried Sister Mary Catherine in the small cemetery behind the convent. A simple stone marked her grave, just like all the others. No mention of fame or fortune, just her name, her dates, and a small inscription she had chosen herself years ago. She played for God. In the weeks that followed, life at the convent continued. The garden was tended, prayers were said, meals were shared in silence. The rhythm of days went on as it always had, as it always would. But every night, when the moon rose over Beaumont and the stars came out to shine, something could be heard floating on the wind. Not real music. The old piano sat silent now, untouched in its corner of the chapel. But something like music, an echo, a memory, a whisper of beauty that refused to die. People said it was just the wind in the trees, or the settling of the old stone buildings, or their imaginations playing tricks. But the sisters knew better. They knew that Sister Mary Catherine was still playing, somewhere beyond the veil of this world, still sharing her gift, still touching heart, and they smiled, and they listened, and they gave thanks for the old nun who had taught them all what it meant to let your light shine. The video of her performance remained online, gathering views year after year. Children who had not yet been born when she played would discover it and share it with their friends. New generations would weep at the beauty of an elderly nun in a simple habit, pouring out her soul through music. Sister Mary Catherine had wanted only to help sick children. She had received so much more. She had become a symbol, a legend, a reminder to the world that genius has no age, that beauty has no limits, and that the most extraordinary gifts often come from the most ordinary lives. Her legacy was not made of stone or bronze. It was made of sound, of memory, of the countless hearts she had touched, and would continue to touch for as long as people listened to music and believed in miracles. She had lived a hidden life. She had died a quiet death. And yet, in the end, she had amazed the entire world just by being herself, just by playing the piano, just by letting her light shine.